It was 2 weeks before kickoff of the 2024 season, and the Las Vegas Lights got a new owner. Months later, they brought in Shawn McIntosh to rebuild the operation. And in this episode of Legacy Unscripted, I sat down with Shawn, now the CEO of Las Vegas Lights, to talk about what it really takes to lead a professional sports club through a full-scale transformation. We dive into things like what drew him to the opportunity and how he's navigating that momentum from this new high-profile but engaged owner, and what it means to create culture on the fly in a high visibility and high stakes environment. From staffing and sponsorships to fan engagement and building community trust, Shawn shares the inside story of bringing vision to life under pressure. This is leadership in the real world. It's fast, it's messy, and it's mission driven. Don't miss it. Welcome to Legacy Unscripted, sponsored by Progeny Coaching. This is the podcast where sports and business collide. I'm your host, Russ Katzman, and here we'll skip the fluff and get straight to the hustle. From athletes turned entrepreneurs to impact-driven business leaders, we'll dive into the wins, the lessons, and some of those failures that make our legacies worth living. Today, I'm happy to welcome Shawn McIntosh, CEO at Las Vegas Lights Football Club. Shawn, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me, Russ.
Appreciate it. So I want to get into this right away because we know that we want to create the excitement for these listeners. One of the trends we've been seeing quite a bit in sports, we just saw it on Monday night with Tom Brady in the coach's booth, is former players, former athletes that are now owners. You're in a situation where you've got some of that going on. Talk to me about that relationship as CEO.
Yeah, so we're fortunate here at the Las Vegas Lights to have an owner who had a lengthy and successful career as a major professional athlete, and Jose Bautista, who purchased the club in January of 2024. And for those that don't know, Joey Bats, most
Yep.
notably famous for his time at the Toronto Blue Jays for the infamous bat flip.
Yep.
And obviously an incredible career as an athlete. I think for us, when I think about where this club was at pre-Jose to where we're at now, and I wasn't at the club before Jose, but as an observer from the outside, I think it's he has brought a sense of ambition and professionalism. It's been transformative what we've seen here in Las Vegas with this club since Jose's purchase. As the CEO, I came on board about, maybe 9 months into his ownership of the club. When he took over, it was a really interesting time because he bought this club weeks before season kicked off. So he had made the purchase in January of 2024. USL schedule kicks off in March, training camp middle of January. So he inherited a club that had no players on the roster, nobody under contract, didn't have a sporting director when he took over. One of his first hires was obviously making sure he brought in a coach and making sure he brought in a sporting director and really turned his attention to getting the sporting side right first. And you can imagine that that's probably going to be the priority for a lot of former athletes. It's that competitive spirit, that desire to win above all else. And so that transformation was incredible and pretty immediate. He was able to take a team with that sporting director that he brought on. Again, super ambitious owner. He went to leagues around the world to bring in impact leaders and brought on a sporting director who had spent his time at Venezia, was a big part of bringing that club from Serie B in Italy to Serie A, the top flight, one of the top 4 leagues in the world. And they were able to build a roster and transform a 3-win team who had never made the playoffs in its history to being a top 4 team in the Western Conference, clinching playoffs for the first time in club history, and then making a deep run all the way to the Western Conference Finals. So, suffice it to say, he's ambitious. Winning's really, really important. And then that priority then shifted to the business side
Yeah.
where Jose and I had connected, and I had spent time in Charlotte in Major League Soccer, working on building up an expansion team in Major League Soccer, and again, him turning his sights to having that same ambition and desire on the business side brought me in to be a part of the revamp at this club.
That's terrific. Yeah, I mean, if you look at your history, and we won't get into all of it today, but you've had a long storied history in variety of sports, variety of professional clubs, everything from the lowest level working your way up. Um, you've had those situations where you didn't have an athlete as the owner, or maybe you didn't have that same involvement. Talk to me about what that brings to you as the CEO and your leadership team, that his presence provides you that you didn't see elsewhere.
Yeah, I think I don't know that I want to paint the broad stroke for all former athletes
Sure.
maybe approaching it the same way. I think Jose, from my year under him is that he's very business savvy. It was clear when you look at him, his post retirement was pretty immediately diving into his portfolio of
Sure.
businesses, and so he is really savvy. He's got an ability to just soak in information and learn on the fly. And again, he brings it from a little bit of a different angle, which for me is really important when I think about building my teams. It's important to bring people in that come in with different mindsets, different specialties, different experiences, and so we're able to kind of attack it from different ways. It's certainly, for me, I've been on the sports business side now for 17, 18 years, and so like anybody, you can get stuck in your
Yep.
ways, or you can kind of get stuck in, hey, this is just what you do in sports business. And I think the power of having somebody like Jose is that he sees it from a different angle and from a different perspective. So I think there's a ton of value in that.
So you talk about the sports business piece of this. You guys are essentially creating this thing from scratch. Yes, he bought a club, but yeah, as you said, a lot of the key players in every sense of the word weren't in place. So I know you were brought in a little bit later, but talk to me about building this thing kind of from scratch, building your team up to have the talent. How do you take even the prioritization of building a team and marketing and trying to build this thing on the fly, because the season you can't decide when to go to market with your team. It's the season starting, right? So how do you prioritize those things around your schedule when you get thrown into something like this?
No, it's a great question. I think too, it's particularly interesting because you said you can't really pick and choose the time when you can go to market. Very different from
Yeah.
any other product, right? Like
Right.
if you're creating a business, it's about making sure things are right before you launch. And as you said, there's no picking and choosing. The schedule starts. Here we are.
Yep.
We're going to do this thing whether we're ready or not. The ball is going to get kicked off, and 11 players are going to be fighting to win a match. And so for me, when I started, it was again really interesting time here at the club. We've dubbed it internally as a relaunch of this club, because while we aren't starting from
Yep.
scratch, and there are different benefits to it, right? I've been a part of an expansion clubs that kind of got a fresh start. This was a relaunch, and so we very much had a history, both good and bad, that we had to navigate. For me, when I came in, I had two very specific focuses as my number one priorities, and that was both staffing, so hiring the quality and bringing on people that understood what this project was, that could come in and do a job at a high level, and then
Hmm.
providing that staff with the resources to do their jobs at a high level. And so when I came in, we had probably 5 full-time staff members, and it was a low resourced club. Under its first 7 or so years, you had people doing 3, 4, 5 different jobs,
Wow.
and you had so few people that were specialized in those roles. And so again, for me, it was starting to reach out to my network that I've built through the years and connecting with people and of course, interviewing, getting jobs posted, having conversations, and bringing in as much talent as I could. And then coming in and of course, making sure we had the resources, making sure we had the technology, the resources. And then it was, again, very much like building a club from scratch. It was job descriptions, it
Yep.
was making sure everybody was paid adequately, building out goals, building out focuses. And then from there, we were able to build out a leadership team. And then with that leadership team, we really took a 30,000 foot view and sat down and said, okay, we've got the people in place, we've got the structure, the resources. Who do we want to be as a club? And
Yeah.
then we came together to build out what our values, our pillars were going to be. We landed on three that we were going to build out everything that we do around. And for us, it was
Nice.
really important that um, it wasn't just fluff. It wasn't just three marketing phrases that you'd see on a website that
Yeah.
we kind of buried in a back corner. This was something that we were really going to build our marketing around. We were going to build our efforts around, and we were really going to live by. And so we landed on three. It was Vegas first. We were going to be a club that was for the local community above all
Yep.
else, whether that was from the partners we brought in. It was going to be really important that those partners had that same mindset of uplifting the Las Vegas community. We were going to make sure that in our storytelling around our marketing, everything from what you see on social, everything from where you see our jerseys, our kits, they were going to tell a story centered around Las Vegas.
Nice.
That second pillar was we wanted to be accessible. And so accessibility across all phases of the club, from our pricing strategy to our players being out in the community, our players being accessible on match days, from our front office to the way we worked with local media. We wanted to be the easiest team to work with. You want access, we'll give you access. You want a player to come out to an event, we'll do that. We want to know, we want to be sure, and we really held ourselves to understanding where the rest of the world was going, and we would
Right.
go in a little bit of the opposite direction, right? Sports teams are pricing out families, they're being increasingly less accessible, so we wanted to make sure that we were grounding ourselves in that accessibility. And then lastly was just our relentless pursuit of success. We wanted to be, again, mirroring that ambition that Jose has. And this was going to be about what you see on the field.
Yep.
Again, dedicating resources, making sure that we were really competitive on the field, but likewise off the field, and in the value that we drive back to our partners, in the way that we hold ourselves, in the way that we execute everything off the field. Wanted to do it at a championship level. So we really grounded ourselves in those three pillars. And every decision that we make, we kind of go back to that and make sure that we hold ourselves accountable. And that's been it's been really important to us. So those were some of those things that we really prioritize early in this life cycle under Jose.
Well, and I love the fact that you've governed over those values, because what you do then is you are shaping the culture. Too many small businesses, sports or otherwise, um, they expect culture to kind of find itself and the people that they hire to kind of create the culture. And sometimes that's a positive thing, but most often it's the squeaky wheel that ends up creating your culture. And so for you to be able to say that it's important for the team for us to set these pillars out here and to live based on those pillars, I think that's a great lesson for everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Talk to me about the team then. Who was your first key hire? It doesn't have to be the name, but just what was that role and why did you pick that role to be your first key hire?
Yeah, it's I'd say my first key hire was honestly my first hire. I'll give the name Will Martin. He's our head of comms and social here. I had a relationship with Will and worked together with him
Sure.
in Charlotte, and so for me, so much of this business is about relationship, and it's hiring is hard.
It
and
is.
there's not an exact science to it. You can go through interviews on interviews. You can feel good about people. I've missed on a ton of talents in my
Yep.
career as much as I've hit. And it's no different than on the sporting side, right? Like a coach is evaluating talent and NBA teams and NHL teams, their drafts, they're evaluating talent. How often do we hear about the draft busts?
Yep.
And you can do all the homework in the world, but sometimes it's some of those immeasurable qualities that you miss and that can't be measured and that's hard to predict. And so for me, what made that so critical was somebody I was working with. It's somebody that I got to see the day in and day out and understood the quality of work that he would bring,
Right.
and know that he was ready to take that step in his career. And so, between him and then my CRO, who I had worked with at 3 different clubs, similar. I knew the work ethic, knew the quality. So much of this business is based on that relationship. So those 2 first hires were individuals that I had worked with in the past that I didn't have. I knew I could go to bed at night and know that their departments were covered and were going to be executed at a high level.
Right. No, I like that. And so the biggest key there is that you are bringing them in and then you are providing them the authority to get things done, the clear expectations of what you want done, etc. Um, that gets us to this term of leading through others. And you've got the picture of Michael over your shoulder, by far one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Um, a lot of times I'll talk to my clients about the contrast of Michael versus Steve Kerr. All right, from a coaching and leadership perspective. And this doesn't take away anything from Michael's presence on the court and what he provided to the team, but he very much led by example. And he would show you on the court what he wanted, and if you didn't have the talent to keep up, you didn't. But he was going to show you on the court what he expected. Steve Kerr, even on the court, was much better about getting the best out of the people around him by knowing what their strengths were and playing to those strengths. I think he does the same in the coaching journey. Talk to me about how you, as a CEO, pull from the strengths of those people that you've surrounded yourself with now.
Yeah, I said earlier, I believe in building a team of people talk about diversity,
Yeah,
and I think diverse backgrounds, diverse thoughts, diverse skill sets are really, really important. It was important to me to build a team of where not everybody was always thinking the same way so that we can
right.
push each other and get better. And so for me, I think that it started with that. It started with, again, trusting the people that I brought in. And, for me, it starts with trust. And I've got to give them the opportunity to lead their departments. Otherwise, I don't know everything, right? Like there's no CEO out there that has specialized in every department, right?
Right.
You're not gonna come up through a revenue side, a marketing side, an
Yep.
ops side, a finance side, and be an expert in all phases. But I've got to run all of those departments. So, for me, it was about trusting those, making sure that again, it all connects. We're all living by the pillars that we said we were going to live by. And ultimately, we all understand what our North Star is. We're all working together to drive certain metrics. And I've got to trust their expertise and ultimately like let them run their departments. And, we'll obviously have check-ins, we'll have conversations. This is a USL club. We don't have the
Yeah.
resources of an MLS team, an NHL team, an NBA team. So, I'm going to be a little bit more hands-on because they need the support,
Right.
and for many of them, it is their first time leading departments. So I believe in being a teacher as much as anything. I think for me, I'm big on sharing my thought process. I find it helpful for them, but also helpful for me because I'm not one to make decisions without the why, without sharing that why.
Yep.
Um, and so that they understand where I'm coming from, so that they can grow, learn, and if there is a disagreement, that they at least understand where I'm coming from. Sometimes it helps me just to say some of this stuff out loud, and I'll realize that maybe I'm the one that's wrong. Right? Doesn't My
Yeah.
line of thinking might be off, and so yeah, it's really interesting, and we've got a really good team here. That again, it's a small team, so that helps. But I think it's a team for me that I've built and really leaned on the fact that everybody has a voice, and it's important that everybody shares that. And I don't ever want to be the one that's like the be all end all, like, hey, this is what we're gonna do, and it is what it is. So
Okay. No, that's good. And you talk a little bit about Will's role in doing out in social and some of that kind of stuff. But as a CEO, a lot of times you are asked to kind of be the face of an organization, especially when it's small. Talk to me about how you're doing that with Vegas First. Talk to me about some of those partnerships you're trying to build right now, that you're searching for right now, that are most important for you to get in front of.
yeah, in terms of being the face, I mean, look, there's no bigger name at the club than Jose Bautista,
And
right?
Joey
It's
Bats,
for
yeah,
us, like, what an incredible asset that is.
sure.
When you've got an owner with name recognition, who has had a career like he's had in the pros, and so we try and be really mindful of when and how we use him, to make sure that it is for those high impact moments. And Will does a really good job of balancing that, and then utilizing myself, particularly when it comes to some of those day to day or local media appearances. But
Hmm.
community is really big for us, so we want to make sure we're plugged in, and we've got great local media relationships. So I think when I think about just Vegas First and some of our community partners, for us, it truly is. It's about connecting with those partners, and for us, we see it. We've really committed to just doing a better job than this club had done in the past, and that's I don't
Sure,
want to knock the way they operated before, but for us, it truly is about making sure in any partnership that we're driving value back to them as much as we're taking, right? This is
yep,
really important, that if you're going to partner with us, we are helping you meet your objectives, and those partnerships have to make sense. And it's not just about the check that you can cut. It's truly, it needs to make sense. I think where we've gotten into some trouble in the past is that so quick to take a check, and those partnerships maybe just didn't make enough sense from what we could
sure,
deliver to make an impact, and then you're not finding yourself in a good place when it comes to those renewals. And so for us, we really want to make sure that we are impacting the local community, the local businesses, as much as we're asking for their support as well, because
sure,
we're obviously a club in the USL, and it's important for us to be ingrained in the community. So our success is going to be tied into the support that we get locally as well. So I think it's a really exciting time. I think for us, when you think about the landscape of the USL, with promotion
hmm,
relegation coming, with Division One coming, it's going to be a really exciting time, particularly in Las Vegas, a city that demands the highest quality of entertainment, that is no shortage of events. For us, it's going to be a really unique time. And I think about the landscape of soccer and how important community building is, the
sure,
storytelling that comes with the promotion relegation. You think about Wrexham right now, how incredible that story is, and that local community that really backs that club. And then you see the growth right now. A little bit of investment helps. But
sure.
for us, I think it's going to be a really cool opportunity for local companies to really plant their flag in us as that local club, as we make our journey through promotion relegation.
Well, and I think you just finished saying it, right? Vegas is thousands and millions of things that can be done on any one time, right? There's just so many options for entertainment and for where to spend that entertainment dollar. Um, Yet we've got the World Cup around the corner. We've got this cusp of a lot of excitement around the game of soccer. How do you balance getting those sticky entertainment dollars and getting them excitement about the World Cup and kind of piggybacking on that? How do you bring those entertainment dollars in and do so without having to break the bank yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you mean from like like how do we bring in fans or just
How do
the
you create that? How do you create that stickiness with those local fans? That's the one thing that anybody who's running any business, sports or otherwise, you want to create that stickiness in your customers. You've got a unique situation where the substitutions for your entertainment dollar are vast, right
yeah.
here locally in Vegas. So how do you create that stickiness for that entertainment dollar?
Yeah, I think for us it's a couple things. Like we again it's how we tell our story. It's providing something that's going to resonate locally. We are focused on again, I go back to those pillars. And so
Yeah,
where potentially we have an opportunity to thrive is in our accessibility. And so you think about um, particularly some of these shows. You've got the Sphere,
yep,
you've got the Vegas Golden Knights, one of the best entertainment teams out there in all of sports.
right,
But you've got the Raiders and the NFL. Their accessibility is going to be different than ours from a pricing standpoint, right? And so
sure,
we have an opportunity to offer really high quality products and high level, soon to be Division 1 level, at a much more affordable rate. And so I think we have an opportunity there. Again, it's the way we operate, the difference. Promotion relegation is going to be something that's never been seen in this country. So again,
yeah,
our differentiation is going to be there in our pricing and some of that storytelling with promotion relegation. I think those are two big things. But then it's again it's providing something unique to any and every demographic. It's doing things that maybe others won't or can't. It's really focusing on our fan experience and being creative with it. I think about this past weekend we hosted our Hispanic Heritage Night, and for us we did some really crazy, unique, different things. Like we had live luchador wrestling at our tailgate,
that's
and
funny.
we had an incredible crowd that
Yeah,
was out there. And that's a local wrestling company that's here that has a
yep,
really deep ties into the community here, deep ties into the Hispanic community. And so we partnered with them to do something a little bit different. You're not going to see that everywhere. And so um, we really want to focus on making sure that our experience once you get to the stadium is going to be a little bit more interactive. We spent some money this year on upgrading some things. And so I think there's some ways that we can differentiate ourselves that'll hopefully entice people to at least come check us out.
no, I love it. Um, I want to switch back over to you and your business journey a little bit. Because one of the things you talked about when we did our introductory call kind of set with me, and I wrote it down. I want to make sure we get to it. Your business journey's had given you the opportunity to kind of go and come back to a couple different places, maybe coming back as a supervisor of people that were previously your colleagues. Talk to me about how somebody navigates that type of relationship when you were at one level, you go someplace else, you come back, and now you're the boss. How does that work?
Yeah, like so specifically, the reference here would be my time with the Norfolk Admirals. I started my career as an intern with the Norfolk Admirals, who were in the American Hockey League at the time, and was in a position where I was kind of battling it out with a handful of other interns for what we all were hoping was a full-time position with the club. And I was fortunate enough that the end of my internship was offered a full-time position. Spent 4 years there before I made my move to the NBA and WNBA with the Suns and Mercury. And 10 or so, a decade later, I had the opportunity to come back where it all started in a full circle moment
Yeah,
as their CRO overseeing all business operations. Some of the folks who were there when I was just an intern were now reporting into me as the CRO. And so that was obviously a special moment, a unique moment. But for me, honestly, it wasn't difficult. It wasn't challenging.
hmm.
I think I don't know. Maybe it's just the relationship piece. I've always worked really hard to just maintain strong relationships, and regardless of title, whether I was an intern or CEO, I like to think of myself as somebody that's willing to roll up my sleeves and not lead by title first.
Right.
So it was just about like, I happen to be the one that you're reporting to, but like we're still doing a job together at the end of the day. And I'm here to help. I've got new experiences now, a decade plus of experiences that you guys don't have. We went on different journeys, and so maybe I can help provide some different thoughts and ways of doing things. And I think they were super receptive about it. I think ultimately it just comes down to the type of human you are more than anything, and just making it easy for them, knowing and understanding that it might be different for them, and maybe there's some challenges for them, and just being mindful of that. That there's now a change in that potential power dynamic. But at the end of the day, like I was there to work with them to get a job done, and didn't really look at it in any other way.
Gotcha. No, I like that. Especially the part about the CEO, regardless of title, just being in that role with them. But we've got a job to do, whoever does it, right? And there is a value to your time based on what you contribute to the organization, and how you contribute that to the organization. So based on knowledge, based on background, and all that kind of stuff, there is a certain value to the organization, and we want to get those things out of you that can only be done by you, and then supplement that with anything else that we can do with everybody else. Talk to me, and I set you up with this question, and I always ask it. The young version of Shawn, what are you going to tell him are your key lessons in business that you want him to know before he gets into this?
Key lessons in business. So I think the one thing I would tell myself is not to be in a rush. I think I was so competitive and wanted to get to the finish line as quickly as possible,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that I would allow myself to get frustrated, whether that's frustrated with my own timelines for promotions and timelines for success. But when I going back to my internship, our head of business operations, he was a vice president at the age of 29, and he was running the club. I remember telling myself, and this is just the way I was always wired, like, oh, that's what I'm going to beat that. I'm going to
Yeah.
do it at 28, 29.
Yeah.
And so I held on to that for so long, just to be like, all right, this is what I got to do. I set this number, I set this goal. I'm really goal driven. And I remember getting to the age of 27, and I was, I say only an account executive. I was kind of where I benchmarked myself, far from
Sure.
where I wanted to be, with that age number coming, right? The age of 28, 29 was looming. I wasn't where I thought I'd be. And I remember having this moment of clarity of just, my God, like, I'm probably going to be working till I'm 60, 70 years old. Like, at some point, you're
Yeah.
not gonna get promoted, right? It's not happening every year. I think we get so accustomed to, like, in school as a school age child, it's just
Yep.
that benchmark every single year. You feel like there's progress, you're graduating. All right, now you're in middle
Sure.
school, you're in high school, right? And so I just had this moment where I was like, well, there's gonna be times in your career where kind of in that same space role for 5, 10 years.
Sure.
And just again, that moment of clarity, being like, there's only so many of these roles out there, and stop being frustrated by the timeline that one I set for myself, or what I see other people doing, right? And I would see
Yep.
somebody get promoted ahead of me, and I felt like, man, like, when's my time coming? And I just spent too much time thinking about that instead of just being in the moment. And so really, when I shifted that mindset, I started to see more success, but I just started to be a little bit more um, peaceful with where my career was, and just knowing, like, do really good work, treat people really, really well, and the right people will notice at the right time. And if I just put my head down and keep focusing on the right things, it'll happen. And when it happens, it'll happen. And so I think that would be the number one thing I'd tell myself early on.
No, I like it. Well, I think we could keep talking forever. Maybe we'll have to do a part two for this. Anything, Shawn, that I haven't asked you that you want to throw out there quick for the audience, or anything about the lights, anything, promotions coming up, next couple months, or anything like that, they can come out and see you and or the players in the off season?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got our last regular season home match on October 11th. Certainly encourage any and everybody that's in the Vegas market to come check us out. But I said it, like we're in this sport in this country continues to blow up. You've got the World Cup here in 2026, so next summer, promotion relegation coming in the USL. It's a really, really exciting time. So encourage folks to come check us out, check your local teams out. I'm big on that. Like wherever you are, whether it's MLS, USL League One, support your local clubs because ultimately everybody wants to see their club be the Real Madrid, the Barcelonas, right? But that doesn't happen without that local support at any and every level. So appreciate the time here, Russ, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk about myself, but more importantly about the lights.
No, this is terrific, and I appreciate you jumping on, Shawn. Can't wait to get out there myself, so I look forward to the opportunity to do so, and it's been a pleasure to talk. So that's a wrap for this episode of Legacy Unscripted. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just let it sit. Take action today to build your future. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with someone who may need to hear it. If you've got a story to share or you just want to connect, you know where to find me. And until next time, keep it real, keep it bold, and keep living your legacy.